Hello YouTube, I'm so glad that you guys liked my last video. Reading your comments was such a wonderful experience. There's so much positivity, and the video wasn't perfect, but being welcomed with such open arms by you all anyways was very pleasant. Thank you all so much for getting me to 1,000 entire subscribers. It means so much to me. So now I'm back with another video to hopefully keep you guys happy. And maybe share this video with some pals of yours. That'd be cool. I don't know. This video, I'm gonna be diving into everything we already know about Chapter 5 without using the trailer. Specifically, we'll be going into like the newsletters, previews, possible foreshadowing, and some more stuff. I know it seems kind of silly to do right before the chapter actually comes out, but I want this video to serve as more of like a time capsule type of thing. You know, it's a point in time where we know so much less than we will when Chapter 5 comes out, so because of this, I encourage you to post your thoughts on Chapter 5 as well in the comments when you're done watching this video, so we can all look back on it and just be like, oh wow, we were all so dumb, how didn't we know about XYZ, you know what I mean? So just like the last video and like all videos of mine, no AI was used in the making of this video. I prefer human-made content. Okay, let's get started. This was after the sweepstakes and when Skies Forever Blue was released, and also when the Devil Plus plush was released. The family can enjoy it. 3 months prior to this newsletter, all we learned about Chapter 5 is that it wasn't as worked on as Chapters 3 and 4, which just kind of makes sense anyways. Still an awesome newsletter, but nothing specific to Chapter 5. Okay, immediately, this newsletter kicks off with a little animation of Toby swinging like a bee from tree to tree. Bars. Now, anyone as normal as I am, I would have many alarm bells ringing in their head because there are flowers, like Chapter 5 has. Oh my god! I've got a little prediction that this animation is like the dog check of that chapter, or maybe an Easter egg like the Chapter 4 Toby climb battle thing. Either way, I think there is legitimate reason to believe that this could show up in Chapter 5. No new status updates on Chapter 5 this newsletter, just on Chapter 3, but at the end of the letter, there's this image of Mew Mew sitting by this cherry blossom tree. And at the time we were like, oh, it's like those trees you see in anime sometimes, which makes sense because Mew Mew is very anime. But now we know how much anime and Japan and even cherry blossom trees will be important to Chapter 5. So is this confirmation that Mew Mew will show up in Chapter 5? I, for one, really hope so. Mew Mew Kissy Cutie for the win. But yes, I am also a firm believer that this tree asset and maybe even Mew Mew asset will be used in Chapter 5. This newsletter is so interesting to me because it was released so long ago and yet shows things that are potentially related to Chapter 5, which is coming out like just now. Hey, speaking of Mew Mew, this letter opens right up to a picture of Alphys and Mew Mew on the beach. Super cute. Do I think this will be used in Chapter 5? No, I don't think so, sorry. I mean, maybe, but we don't really see anywhere Sandy in Deltarune. If this is at the festival, then, like, where? By Onion-san? I don't think so. The next animation shown off is of a headless Mew Mew walking by with some ice cream. Now this I could see being used in Chapter 5 because like the only image we've seen so far of the festival literally has a giant ice cream sign. So maybe Mew Mew bought one and is taking it to her head or taking it to someone else. But yeah, ice cream. After that animation is one of Susie chowing down on, I think that's a cantaloupe. The files call it a melon though, so I guess I'll call it a melon. This one's interesting because the very next sprite shows Ralsei with a melon head. Now I want you to look at these two sprites and tell me what is possibly weird / interesting about them. If Ralsei is able to have a melon head, then why is Susie in her light world form here? Do you just expect me to believe that these giant melons just do not undergo any sort of transformation through the light and dark world? Fix your game, Toby. No, but seriously. Normally I'd excuse it and say it's just a dumb little sprite made only for this newsletter, but if that's the case, why melons? Why? Melons that are plants when there's a chapter that is all about plants? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe. We also got this animation of IQ Shorts Birdly flapping a leaf to cool down a dressed up Noelle. Could this have something to do with Chapter 5? It's possible, but it seems a bit dubious to me. When we see Noelle in the festival screenshot, she is not dressed up fancy at all. In fact, it doesn't seem like anyone is. It seems like almost all of the sprites in animations would seem very dubious to be included in Chapter 5. Especially the last one, which contains Undyne, and I doubt this one will be used because she's, you know, busy. Unless this is the flashback. Probably not. Anyways, no other Chapter 5 information in this newsletter, so we'll just have to move on.
There's nothing.
Okay, there's like two things. There's this animation of Ralsei raking leaves while Lancer just demolishes this singular leaf, which I could see being used in a Castletown cutscene in Chapter 5 maybe. Not sure where the leaves would come from though. And then at the end of the letter, there's this animation of Papyrus just staring down this worm. I don't even know if Papyrus will show up in Chapter 5, let alone Deltarune in general, but, you know, it's something. Oh my god, there's so much! And what are the chances it's on the 5th newsletter too? Okay, so we learned that the team is working on Chapter 5, but that's all the updates on Chapter 5 itself, this newsletter. It's kind of funny, by the way, that spring 2024 is when we hear the most about Chapter 5 in a while. Okay, starting off. There's this image of 5 flowers in a row. A purple flower, a cyan flower, an orange flower, a dark blue flower, and Flowey the flower. This is already so interesting because they're consistently shown in this order throughout the letter. The colors of the flowers seem to line up with each chapter's main color as well. Chapter 1's Purple Fields, Chapter 2's Light Blue Cyber City, Chapter 3's TV World, and Chapter 4's Beautiful Dark Blue. And we know that Chapter 5 will consist of pink and gold, so it would make sense for Flowey, a golden flower, to represent Chapter 5 too. I wonder if that's Toby's version of proof Flowey will appear in Chapter 5. These are the same flower sprites used in Asgore's shop, so I suppose Flowey comes from specifically the darkener version of the golden flower, if that's the case. How exciting, and that's all from the first image. Next animation shows Asgore and Undyne cutting Toriel and Alfie's figures, respectively, into a big bush. I could totally see this appearing in Chapter 5 in some form, except for one big glaring issue. The next one shows Papyrus watering each flower, with Flowey clearly not having any of it. I'm not really sure what to make of this one, other than maybe Papyrus having some role in Chapter 5 somehow. Or maybe it just doesn't mean anything at all. Lol. The next animation shows Susie holding up Chris, who is watering a hatted Ralsei, causing a little flower to grow out of his head. So cute. I wouldn't really think much of this, honestly, but maybe it's like a new mechanic or something, and the return of hatted Ralsei. But in Chapter 5's trailer, Toby is also shown at the start with a flower growing out of his head. either Toby thinks this is just very funny, or this is some sort of game mechanic or gimmick. Maybe. I don't know. The next animation shows Papyrus trying to feed cat food to all of the flowers, with only Flowey eating and enjoying it. Good to know he enjoys cat food, I guess. And after that is this animation of the cherry blossom tree we saw from before, but now with NTT and Mimu taking a picture of Naftablu. And then after that is this animation of Sans cutting his own shape into the bush from earlier. I don't have much to comment on these than I've already said, and this newsletter has already taken up much more time than the others. So let's just move on with it. Move on. This is around the time that Chapter 5 picks up in development because Chapters 3 and 4 are approaching their finish lines. That's about all this newsletter says about Chapter 5. As for animations, there's actually only one that I can see being relevant to Chapter 5, and that's this one. Chris and Susie are huddled around Hatted Rousey again, except this time he's being used as a candle, and the fire on his hat being used to heat up the dark candies. It's odd how droopy the heart on his outfit is here. Come to think of it, it's kind of odd how he's just like sitting there, unmoving, unaffected, unbothered, while Chris and Susie seem normal for the most part. This is just like that one with the flower coming out of his hat. Okay, maybe a little bit of a theory here, but what if there's like some sort of fake Rousey that shows up in Chapter 5? Providing more of like a use for the heroes as an attempt to try to correct the path of the prophecy or something, or halt his character development. If this isn't a fake Rousey, then something terribly wrong has happened. Which also doesn't seem too unlikely, actually, considering the ending of Chapter 4. This is when we get to see the iconic festival balloon. And only the iconic festival balloon. And I know it's the festival balloon because, look. What's interesting is that when Toby talks about Chapter 5 becoming the main focus for the team at this point in time, he specifies that he's excited for this chapter to get made. Preposterous. That's it, by the way. Yeah, that's it, yeah. We get two Chapter 5 sprites this time. The first one is a decorated wreath, possibly used for the festival, but we can't be sure because we don't see it in the festival screenshot we got. Probably has something to do with the holidays, because duh. Then there's the wonderful man himself, Pizza Pants, who took the effort to shave for his presumed hot date. So we get to see some more Pizza Pants content in Chapter 5, which is a big hype. There's also this block of text spoken by Noelle about Des. It's very possible she might say or reference this text in Chapter 5 as well. There's a couple of MS Paint drawings of Toby holding a yellow flower. This is the only part of this newsletter that could have anything to do with Chapter 5. I bring it up because it's possible this is concept art for something in Chapter 5, hence the flower, but that's all though. Toby says he'll talk about Chapter 5, but he proceeds to talk about it like it's something he really wants to avoid spoiling, which is reasonable. He then gives us a wonderful little cutscene with the mics. By the time of this newsletter, Chapter 5 is about 50% complete. He then shows off this cool tree, which is a smaller version of the candy trees from Chapter 1, which, looking back, didn't we see smaller versions of dark candy before? So the animation of Chris and Susie making roasted marshmallows with Hatted Rousey is really in Chapter 5? Because where else would they get tiny dark candies, if not a tiny dark candy tree, right? I wonder if this tree is a one-off thing, or if there'll be more of them in Chapter 5. Then after that is this tiny trash can, which we've actually already seen. We see it if we throw away the manual in Chapter 1, where in response, Rouse adds it to our desk so we can throw it away better next time. But what is it doing here? In the section all about Chapter 5, would throwing away the manual come back to bite us in Chapter 5? Why else would they show us this trash can? It all leads back to Rouse. It's Rouse's manual that gets thrown away into the trash can that Rouse gave us. It's Rouse that they roast the dark candies on. It's Rouse that they grow the flour on. It's Rouse whose head turns into a giant melon. What does it all mean? Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but you have to admit all the connections to Rouse in Chapter 5 are really freaky. After the trash can is an animation of QC and her sister laughing together, which will probably also be used for the festival. I've got nothing else to say, but keep this Rouse stuff in mind. I legitimately only noticed these connections while writing all this down. Another delicious video of the 3 mics that's a continuation of last time. Toby says that Chapter 5 is basically almost done in this newsletter. We also see a caked up Cootie who could appear in Chapter 5's Dark World or in Castletown. I'm not sure. There's some shadow guys jumping up and down for joy, along with some shadow guys cheering and waving some dark dollars in the air. They're probably in the Castletown because I don't see why they would appear in a different Dark World. Are they cheering for you or against you? I don't know. There's also this queen who is absolutely shimmying. No, that's like really what the file name says. It says she's shimmying, so. Also, you hear that song that's been playing this whole time? That's Chapter 5's shop theme that was given to us by this newsletter as well. What's really interesting about this track is that Toby says it's the only one so far that won't spoil anything. The only one. Every other soundtrack somehow spoils something, whether it be like the title of the song or the leitmotifs used in the song. Which is just so interesting. This is the newsletter that came with Chapter 5's trailer. It starts and ends with a singular golden flower, which seems to parallel the other newsletter, which had the multicolored flowers. And that's all of the newsletters, at least so far. I think it's interesting how, despite already having read these over the years, having a future perspective on it all can really change like how you think about the information. But we're still not done. Toby likes to post something on his Blue Sky as well. It's not much, but it's something, and something Chapter 5 related. So let's get into that as well. This adorable concept art is 100% Susie checking Chris's hair for mites and fleas. Because of Toby's absolutely stunning art style, it's kind of difficult to know if this is in the light world or dark world, but that doesn't really matter to me because it's just cute and probably not that lore relevant. But if I'm wrong, you can just beat me up with hammers and I don't care. All of this, the most text ever. This is just insane for Toby to randomly drop one day. Okay, I'm gonna be analyzing all of this, okay? Even though people have already done it, I'm just gonna do it, okay? So number 1, Cootie the Worm is back and is caked up, which we have already seen. Number 2, TVs are good at talking but not good at listening. The only context I can see this being used in, assuming there's no new TVs in Chapter 5, which there just might be, is just some extra flavor text regarding Tenna. Like maybe you overhear him and MTT talking at some point, but only if you had given Tenna to MTT. Number 3, you use the annoying dog. I don't know, I just don't know, okay? This dog just shows up wherever, okay? I don't know. Number 4, adventures like quests pretend to be a dog. This one is equally as cryptic. Number 5, Susie and Chris are talking about horror movies. This is probably in response to seeing something that sparked a memory or conversation about movies. What that could be, I don't know. Number 6, you and your brother eating candy apples together. The only thing I can think of is that these are a bunch of pictures that someone, probably like Asgore, has kept, and this is you rummaging through them. Number 7, green apple shampoo. Maybe there's shampoo for sale at the festival and Chris is thinking of buying some, who knows? That, or Chris is just in someone else's house and looking at their shampoo for some reason. Number 8, the big one. Sham basically name drops determination. I mean, come on. What do you want me to say about this? It's so interesting, but like, what's it mean, you know, that the night is made of determination? Such a cool line, but I still don't really know what to make of it. Yeah, and that's it for all of the text that Toby gave us. Just this image. This wouldn't be too notable if there wasn't a line here that said excessive makeout scenes. I cannot wait to see the Asgore x Rudy excessive makeout scene in chapter 5. Oh, I'm so excited. The Florida name drop. These guys are so adorable. One of them has a conductor hat and is about to flip a lever, which is interesting. Chapter 5 will contain a train, maybe? We already saw these guys in the chapter 5 trailer, but thankfully Toby felt the need to show them off specifically, so thank you, Toby. And that just about covers everything that I was able to find about chapter 5 that Toby wanted to show us. There's probably more somewhere, maybe an interview or post or image somewhere I missed. And if I did, please tell me in the comments, but yeah. Now for some miscellaneous details that I couldn't fit in the last video and still kinda don't fit in this video, but I felt it was important to talk about them anyways. First off is some more Sham stuff. I really love this non-binary cat. One of the things Sham tells us all the way back in chapter 2 was, you don't want to get caught when the sun goes down. At the time we thought this would be referring to chapter 3's Dark World because it happened at night. But it doesn't really make sense. We didn't really get caught by anything important in chapter 3. However, I saw some other people discussing how this might play into chapter 5 because it's the only chapter we've seen so far with a sun in the Dark World. So maybe in chapter 5 something bad happens when the sun sets or something. That's kind of terrifying, but yeah. Also, I don't doubt that you've been getting all of the Shadow Crystals each chapter, but it's very especially important that you get the one in chapter 5 as well, because Sham talks about making something we'll enjoy once they have 5 of them. This is something we can only have gotten if we fight each secret boss, including the Knight. So, whatever Sham gives us will be very important and will be the culmination of all of these optional battles. There's this line from Tenna where he says, "Look, the 6 p.m. show, I'll show it at 5. This could mean nothing, or this could be referring to an event that would normally happen in chapter 6, possibly happening in chapter 5. Or, since Gaster is closely associated with the number 6, maybe he shows up in chapter 5. Maybe. Maybe. In this part of the chapter 3 sword route, there's 7 flowers by the Asgore-like monster. In order to kill the Asgore-like monster and proceed, we first must defeat all 7 flowers. This causes a bridge between us and the Asgore-like monster to form, and then we fight the Asgore-like monster and we have to kill him. If this is foreshadowing for the weird route, the implications are terrifying. If all 7 flowers do turn out to be their own characters, then this would imply we have to kill each one of them for being able to kill Asgore in chapter 5. By the way, I highly recommend that you watch the Roots Theory video by GoldPro. He talks a lot about this type of thing in that video. When we talk to Alphys in chapter 1, she tells us that Asgore talks to her a lot, gives her flowers, and she also lends him comics. This could be a major reason that chapter 5 is even Japan themed, because Alphys is such a major weeb. and the comic she lent him could be Japanese manga or something. This could even support the idea of Mew Mew showing up in some form in Chapter 5. Alphys could even have a big role in Chapter 5. I kinda hope so, honestly. It'd be cool. And that is all I wanted to talk about this video. Yep. Now, there's a couple other things I could have touched on, especially with the Chapter 5 trailer, but I'm sure that's already been done to death by other Deltarune YouTubers, and there's probably nothing I can tell you that I haven't told you already. I'm sure I missed a bunch of details as well, but that doesn't really bother me too much, you know. Chapter 5 is so close anyways, so I don't see it as much of a big deal if we miss a few things, you know. If you liked the video, please do give it a like, and if you want to see more of my content, then subscribe. Thank you all so much for the comments on the last video. I loved reading each and every one, and I hope you have something you want to comment about under this video. Like I said at the start of this video, I consider this more of like a time capsule kind of moment to look back on later, so it wouldn't hurt to share your thoughts about Chapter 5 before it comes out, you know? Okay, video's over. So excited to see you all on June 24th. Deltarune tomorrow!